So I recently picked up the Clé de Peau the foundation. This is a very expensive foundation that I immediately fell in love with. I was blown away by the performance, by the appearance on the skin, by the texture, by the blendability, you name it. I quickly became enamored with this foundation and wanted to see how it held up against all of my other favorite foundations. I pulled out several of my foundations that I felt were close to this formula, wanted to see how they compared head to head. Now, a lot of these I have worn side by side in daily life and have a pretty good grasp on how they compare. The first one that we're going to compare it to is the Chanel Sublimage foundation. This is the liquid version, obviously. The pot foundation and I don't really get along well, but this one I absolutely love. We're also going to compare it to a newer release, the Givenchy Prisma Libre Glow Serum Foundation. I have fully formed thoughts on this. Also a newer purchase, the Carolina Herrera Nude Couture foundation, the Chanel Le Beige Water Tint, and of course the Chantecaille reformulation of the Future Skin. This one was the one that I was most curious about, seeing how they compare. So we are going to put all of them on my face. I'm going to describe to you any quantifiable differences that I see, and we will figure out if any of these foundations top the Clé de Peau, or is it really that special? Let's get into it. I'm going to go ahead and put this on this side of my face, and then we are going to compare everything on this side. This is, again, the Clé de Peau the foundation. I have mine in shade 020. Just going to take about that much. That's probably too much, honestly. And I'm going to blend it out with a sponge, and then this is going to stay here for the rest of the video. Here is the Clé de Peau and nothing on this side. As you can see, it is not a full coverage foundation. You can still see my freckles and any discoloration, you know, kind of peeking through. I don't mind that because I feel like it just gives skin this really perfected look, even though it's not flawless. I don't know exactly how to explain it. It's something you maybe have to see in person. It's something that I see looking in the mirror, using all of these foundations, comparing them against this one. It's just got this glow. It doesn't accentuate pores. You can still see my pores, but it just glides over them. It's not accentuating them. The way that it smooths over the skin and sets on the skin is unique to most of these foundations that I'm going to show you. I'm going to do just a little bit of concealer here in the inner corner on both eyes with these foundations, just to cover up the discoloration under my eyes for the rest of the video. The concealer that I am going to use is the RMS concealer. This is so good. I got CN07. So I'm going to put just the smallest amount on the inner corner of the eye. Literally all I'm going to use. I'm going to blend it out real quick with a finger, and then we will go in with our first comparison. So the first one that we're going to compare is the Chanel Sublimage Le Sens de Teint. This is, I'm probably saying that wrong, but I'm trying. The jar one was a little heavy for me. This one works a lot better. This is an absolutely gorgeous foundation. I have this in the shade BD21. I'm going to use a different beauty blender. I will clean my beauty blender between foundation applications too. That is the foundation alone blended out. To make it fair, I am going to put just a tiny bit of concealer under my eye so we can get a look at an even complexion. I'm going to look at these 10 times magnification. 1 second. The thing that I notice after having worn this more than just here, doing this side-by-side comparison here, is that the Chanel does settle in my smile line here. I don't know if you can see, but I have fine lines right here. And most complexion products settle in there pretty quickly. When something doesn't, I always make note of it because it's rare. The Chanel does settle in my smile lines and the Chantecaille does not. Also, the Chanel, I'm just looking, you know, in my mirror right in front of me. The Chanel, my pores are slightly more enhanced, like they're just a little more visible than they are here, despite the fact that I think the glow is even on both sides. I'm really kind of zeroing in and trying to find the differences. If you set your face with powder, I don't think that it would even be a visible difference. But looking for differences, those are the ones that I notice. This one might be just slightly more emollient. That's why it settles. The Chanel also looks heavier on the skin. It doesn't look heavy on the skin. It's just that this is so lightweight appearing on the skin that this looks heavier by comparison. Also, you know, like around your nose, like in your nose creases, a lot of foundations settle there. The Chantecaille doesn't. This one settles just slightly. So the main thing that I notice is this one just settles a bit more into lines and pores. There's something about the Clé de Peau that's effortlessly beautiful. It doesn't look like makeup. I'm going to go clean my beauty blender, wash this part of my face, do my skin prep, and then we will come back and do the next foundation. Most of the foundations that we're going to try today have more coverage than the Clé de Peau. The next one we're going to compare is the Givenchy Prisma Libre Glow Serum Foundation. I love this foundation. It's so beautiful. Look at this at 10 times magnification. We'll discuss. So this foundation is beautiful. It's one of my favorite foundation releases so far this year. I think it's stunning on the skin. It's got a bit more glow than the Clé de Peau. And although I feel like this foundation does an excellent job at blurring, it does not blur as much as the Clé de Peau. I feel like my pores are enhanced on this side compared to this side. Now, I have let it set down. I've been walking around my house. I've been looking at it in different lighting, trying to see if I can get a good grasp on how to communicate the differences in the foundation to you. All that I can think to say is that this one is just not quite as blurring, as perfecting, but it's still stunning. Like, is it a $200 difference? More than a $200 difference? Absolutely not. However, I do have one that is going to get us closer than even this to the Clé de Peau. So let's move on. This is a beautiful foundation. If you're looking for something with a glow but coverage that lasts really well, I highly recommend this. This will be in my Sephora recommendations because I love this foundation so much. It's beautiful. The next foundation that we are going to compare is the Carolina Herrera Nude Couture Triple Moisture Serum Foundation. It's been a little bit. I got sick. Like, I don't know. I hadn't eaten yet today and I started feeling a little not very good. I had a snack and I am back. It's been sitting on my face for, I'd say, half an hour or so. So let me just tell you how these two compare. When I first received this in the mail, I put the Clé de Peau on one half of my face and this on the other, much like I have today, to compare them. This is such a beautiful foundation that it has set the bar for all of my other foundations. So I kind of compare everything against it. This is stunning on the skin. I have a video where I talk about this and apply it and wear it. It's a beautiful foundation. It is incredibly skin-like. It doesn't look like makeup on the skin. Maybe ever so slightly more matte. I think the coverage levels are the same in these two, and I think that this is a beautiful option. It has a lot of skin caring ingredients in it. It's really good for mature skin. I love this foundation. I love all of the ones that we're talking about today. Just to be clear, that's why I have them here. Carolina Herrera is gorgeous. I love it. It's not quite as perfecting as the Clé de Peau. Again, it's something that I cannot really articulate. Even looking at it here in my mirror, like, it's hard for me to quantify what it is about the Clé de Peau that looks so beautiful on the skin. I think it's that it just makes your skin look so hydrated without looking like you've got on a shiny, dewy complexion product. Anyway, this is stunning. It's a beautiful alternative. I do have one that I think is closer though, and we will talk about that in a moment. I'm going to wash this off and we're going to go in with the Chantecaille. I have worn these side by side before and I have some thoughts. In my mind, these were going to be the most similar, and I don't know why, just because maybe of the texture of them and the delivery system, but I don't think they are. So let me put this on and we'll talk about it. All right, so we have the Chantecaille on the side. This is the shade Shell. It's one of the new shades. It's a little bit deeper and a little more yellow than the Clé de Peau. So the texture of them between the fingers feels very, very similar. Chantecaille feels almost cooling on the skin, and for some reason when I put it on, it almost feels like it is absorbed into the skin. I know it's not, but that's just the feeling that I get from this one. It feels very much like skincare. It almost feels like a very thin, like a gel. You know, it feels like a gel. The Chantecaille feels just ever so slightly more creamy. I think that it translates on the skin as ever so slightly more creamy. Like if I had to describe the difference in the finishes, I would say this is a little bit creamier, this is a little bit thinner, you know, looking on the skin and the way that it sits on the skin. I think that the coverage is very similar in both of these formulas. I don't think that one has more or less coverage than the other. I think that the Chantecaille is slightly more matte. Not that it's matte, but I'm saying comparatively, it's slightly more matte than the Clé de Peau. On the skin, you can't see either one of these. They're virtually undetectable. The Chantecaille, if you're familiar with that formula, it's very thin. Like I said, it feels like it almost melts into the skin and disappears into the skin. It's a very unique formula in that way. The Clé de Peau doesn't feel like that, but it looks like that. I don't know how to explain it. Like the Clé de Peau, no matter what is going on, I can put it on and it looks absolutely beautiful, absolutely flawless. They both wear equally well. There's no sign of breakdown really on either of them, especially because they are such thin formulas that just kind of melt in with the skin and don't sit on top of it. The main differences here are going to be that the Clé de Peau is a little bit glowier on the skin, but it's not in a way that is like accentuating anything that you don't want accentuated. They both feel very nourishing. They both have skin-carrying ingredients in them. I feel like the Clé de Peau kind of glides over skin a little bit more than the Chantecaille. The Chantecaille, like, it looks like your skin. It doesn't look like you're wearing makeup. Clé de Peau doesn't either, but it kind of changes the texture of your skin. It kind of perfects it in a way that the Chantecaille really doesn't. It's perfecting. I think that that's one of its strong suits, is that it's perfecting. It's just not quite as perfecting as the Clé de Peau. Every time I wash my face and reapply, I put on this super saturated serum. I love this. I've talked about it in like 3 videos. It's so good. All 4 of those foundations are absolutely beautiful and I love them so much. But the one that I feel is closest in comparison to the Clé de Peau, like how it sits on the skin, how it looks when I first put it on, how it wears throughout the day, even the shade, is the Chanel Le Beige Water Fresh Tint. This is the shade medium light. The only unfortunate thing about this is there aren't very many shades. Now, I have one pump, that's probably too much. Since it is these little beads, I like to put this on with a finger rather than a sponge or a brush or anything like that. So let me just rub this in. So that is the Chanel Water Fresh Tint on this side of the face. And this, in my opinion, in several different types of lighting, this is the closest to the Clé de Peau out of all the foundations that I personally have. It is the closest in coverage. It is the closest in texture. This is the closest that I get to the Clé de Peau. Absolutely beautiful on the skin. If you're familiar with this formula, it's been a long time since I've worn this. This is something that I used years ago and then kind of got tired of the beads of it all, like, you know, trying to work it out. I like to use fingers with a formula that has beads in it. And I kind of was over it and just moved on. And I think that I bought the Complexion Touch and thought that this had been discontinued and that that was the replacement, and didn't really like that one. It sits a little heavier on the skin, in my opinion. Well, I recently picked this one up pretty close to the time that I picked up the Clé de Peau, and I put them on side by side, and I was just like, oh my gosh, these look so similar, even when you're blending it out. Like there's something about the Clé de Peau that when you are just first putting it on the skin, it's an experience. You see how beautiful it is. Like immediately upon applying it. Chanel might have slightly less coverage. They're quite similar on the skin. So I am going to do the rest of my makeup and then we're going to talk about it because, you know, I like to talk about it. Okay, so I've got all of my makeup on. I'm still wearing the Clé de Peau on this side, the Chanel Water Fresh Tint on this side. So I do have to say everything went on top of these two foundations absolutely beautifully. I am wearing the Clé de Peau setting powder. This is a beautiful, beautiful setting powder and it works so well with both of these foundations. It sets them down, but they're not like matte or dry looking. So let's talk about these foundations. Starting with the Chanel, it is one of my favorite foundations. It's so beautiful on the skin. I feel like the ingredients are nourishing. I mean, that's why it is so expensive because it does have skincare in it. I have a whole video on this and how much I love it. It does settle in smile lines, which I mentioned in that video, but I still love the way that it looks. It's very perfecting on the skin. It's an absolutely gorgeous foundation, but side by side to the Clé de Peau, it looks more makeup-y. The Givenchy Prisma Libre, kind of the same thing, right? This has more coverage than the Clé de Peau. It accentuates pores a little bit more, which is an odd thing to say because this to me is very blurring on its own. When I'm not doing it as a side-by-side to something like the Clé de Peau, I feel like it's very glowy but very blurring. It's also incredibly long-lasting. This is one of my favorite foundations at Sephora. Compared to the Clé de Peau though, the Clé de Peau does look a little more natural on the face at 10 times magnification. The Carolina Herrera is an absolutely beautiful, nourishing foundation for mature skin. I think that the coverage levels in this and the Clé de Peau are very similar, and I think that the way that they sit on the skin is very similar. This is maybe slightly more moisturizing, which I think would be really good for dry skin. Not that the Clé de Peau is not moisturizing, like it never accentuates anything on my face, but this doesn't either. I can't think of a single negative thing to say about this, except this shade range is very limited. It's limited in the Clé de Peau as well. And then the Chantecaille. So this is the one that I felt like would be most similar, and surprisingly, I don't feel like it's similar. I don't feel like they look the same. There is just something about this that is a completely different finish to the Clé de Peau. The Clé de Peau is undetectable, but it just does this magic on the skin. It almost gives you like a glass-like finish, but it's not shiny and it's not texture enhancing. This is a little more matte. This just takes on whatever texture is under it and looks like that. It's gorgeous. It feels like skincare. It feels like it kind of disappears into the skin and the Clé de Peau doesn't. And that sounds like it would be a negative, but it's not. What I mean is the Clé de Peau does this thing where it just like puts on a layer of better skin that looks like skin. Does that make sense? I hope I'm probably not explaining that in any way that makes any sense at all. Surprisingly, the one that I feel is most similar to the Clé de Peau, that gives me the most similar finish on the skin and the most similar look when I look in the mirror in all different lighting conditions, is the Chanel Water Fresh Tint. I'm very surprised by that. I think it's because this is so hydrating. So when you put it on your skin looks so nourished. And that is one thing that I feel like the Clé de Peau does differently than all of these foundations, except the Chanel. The Chanel looks so healthy and hydrated, doesn't enhance texture. In fact, it almost just kind of perfects your skin with very little coverage. It's very similar to this in that way. This does not have a lot of coverage. You would think because it's like in this pot and it's thick that it's going to have a lot of coverage. It doesn't. There's something about the Clé de Peau glow that is hard to replicate. It's the very, very slightest step above this. Is it a $200 step above this? No, but it's undeniably the most beautiful foundation I have ever put on my face. I wish I had worse news. I wish I could say that one of these topped it. I really do. But as of right now, I have not found anything better. All of these foundations, they're going to get you very, very close to the Clé de Peau. Thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you soon in another one. Until then, please take care of yourselves. Bye-bye. Also, if you're curious about my nails, look at these. Oh, they're so pretty. These are Glamnetic Lilac Steel. They're gorgeous. I'll link them below. I love them so much. Okay, bye guys.